Alright folks, welcome. Or should I say, welcome to what might be the end of my sanity. My name is James Powers, and for the next 7 days, I'm diving headfirst into the abyss. That's right, I'm taking on the absolutely bonkers challenge of watching and reviewing 30, count 'em 30 terrifying horror films in just 1 week. The big question on everyone's mind, including my own, is can I actually survive this onslaught of scares? More importantly, can I emerge from the darkness with my wits intact to give you the kind of deep dive analysis these cinematic nightmares deserve? I'm hoping so, because honestly, I'm ridiculously excited, if a little apprehensive, to share this journey with you. I've curated a list of 30 must-see horror films that are practically guaranteed to send shivers, and maybe a few screams, down your spine. We're talking the whole terrifying spectrum here, from those undisputed classic horror movies that laid the groundwork for generations of terror, to the modern masterpieces that are redefining what it means to be scared in the 21st century. We're going to be dissecting what makes each of these films a uniquely terrifying experience. I'll be breaking down the plots, sure, but also getting into the nitty-gritty of the cinematography that creates that unbearable dread, and the thematic elements that make these stories stick with you long after the credits roll. So buckle up, turn down the lights, if you dare, and get ready for a truly thrilling ride through the best and most brutal that horror has to offer. We're going to explore what makes these films stand out, what makes them iconic, and what makes them worm their way into our deepest fears. This isn't just about watching movies, it's about experiencing them, analyzing them, and maybe, just maybe, learning a little something about what scares us and why. Let the marathon of madness begin. Kicking things off with an absolute titan of terror, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Folks, this film isn't just a horror movie, it's an experience, a descent into madness meticulously crafted by a master filmmaker. What Kubrick does with Isolation here is pure, unadulterated genius. He traps the Torrance family in the Overlook Hotel, this vast, empty, yet overwhelmingly oppressive space, and just lets the psychological screws tighten. The sense of unease doesn't just build, it seeps into your bones, making you feel as trapped and unhinged as Jack. It's a slow burn, but the heat it generates is intense, focusing on atmosphere and psychological decay rather than cheap jump scares, though it has its shocking moments. The Overlook Hotel itself becomes a character, its labyrinthine corridors and hauntingly symmetrical shots disorienting you, making you question what's real. The eerie, almost suffocating atmosphere Kubrick conjures is something else. It's palpable, and it's a huge part of why this film is still giving me, and I'm sure many of you, nightmares to this very day. From the ghostly twins to that tidal wave of blood, the imagery is iconic for a reason. It's a masterclass in building tension and suspense, using every cinematic tool, the Steadicam, the unsettling score, Jack Nicholson's unhinged performance, to create a truly unforgettable and deeply disturbing journey into the heart of darkness. Alright, next up we're diving into a film that needs no introduction but deserves all the discussion, William Friedkin's The Exorcist. This isn't just widely considered a horror classic, it is the horror classic for so many and for incredibly good reason. The sheer audacity of this film even today is something to behold. It tackles the theme of demonic possession with a raw, unflinching intensity that was absolutely groundbreaking at the time and still packs a visceral punch. It's not just about the scares, it's about the violation of innocence, the crisis of faith, and the primal fear of an evil we can't comprehend. What makes The Exorcist so terrifying and thought-provoking is its commitment to realism within its fantastical premise. Friedkin's documentary-style filmmaking, coupled with the incredible and often stomach-churning practical effects, makes Regan's possession feel terrifyingly tangible. These effects, from the levitation to the headspin, still hold up remarkably well, a testament to the skill involved. The performances are phenomenal across the board, grounding the supernatural horror in very human reactions of fear, desperation, and ultimately courage. It's a film that crawls under your skin and stays there, forcing you to confront some truly uncomfortable questions. Now for a modern masterpiece that completely flipped the script on the horror genre, Jordan Peele's Get Out. This film, folks, is an absolute game-changer. Peele didn't just make a scary movie, he crafted a razor-sharp social thriller that uses the conventions of horror to deliver a potent and deeply unsettling commentary. Its unique blend of genuine, heart-pounding scares with biting social critique makes it an essential watch, not just for horror fans, but for anyone interested in powerful filmmaking. The way it lures you in with a seemingly familiar setup before pulling the rug out from under you is masterful. What's truly brilliant about Get Out is how Jordan Peele masterfully wields satire and suspense to critique racism. It's not just allegory, it's a visceral depiction of the black experience through the lens of a terrifying what-if. The sunken place is such a chilling and iconic visual metaphor for helplessness and marginalization. The unease builds steadily, from microaggressions to outright body horror, creating a sense of paranoia that's both specific to Chris's predicament and universally relatable in its depiction of otherness. It's clever, it's unsettling, and it proves that horror can be one of the most effective genres for exploring complex social issues. Alright, let's talk about a film that single-handedly revitalized the supernatural horror subgenre for a new generation. James Wan's The Conjuring. This film is a prime example of how to do old-school scares right in the modern era. Wan is a master of his craft, and here he expertly uses a combination of genuinely effective jump scares, the kind that make you levitate out of your seat, and a deeply creepy, pervasive atmosphere to keep you perpetually on the edge. It's a haunted house movie dialed up to 11, executed with such confidence and skill that it feels both familiar and terrifyingly new. The story, based on the supposed real-life case files of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, adds a layer of this could happen that makes the supernatural elements even more chilling. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are fantastic as the Warrens, bringing a sense of earnestness and gravity to the proceedings. The film doesn't just rely on things popping out, it builds dread through its sound design, its shadowy cinematography, and its patient, deliberate pacing before unleashing the terror. It's a modern horror classic for a reason, and it kickstarted an entire cinematic universe, which tells you just how much it resonated with audiences. Next on the list is a film that tapped into our anxieties about technology and urban legends in a truly terrifying way, The Ring. And whether you're thinking of the Japanese original Ring or the American remake, the core concept is undeniably chilling. The way this story uses folklore and the almost viral nature of a cursed videotape to create a pervasive sense of unease is pure, insidious genius. It's not just about a monster, it's about a curse that spreads, a ticking clock that instills a unique kind of dread. You watch the tape, you get the call, 7 days. Simple, effective, and absolutely horrifying. The film's eerie, desaturated atmosphere, punctuated by genuinely startling jump scares and that unforgettable waterlogged imagery of Sadako or Samara, makes it a must-watch for horror fans. But beyond the immediate scares, there's a deeper layer of melancholy and dread. The exploration of themes like grief, unresolved trauma, and the breakdown of communication adds a surprising amount of depth to the story. It's a film that makes you look twice at your TV screen, and maybe even reconsider pressing play on that unmarked tape you found. The dread it instills is potent and lingers long after the credits. Alright, brace yourselves, because we're heading into truly grim territory with Tobe Hooper's 1974 masterpiece, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This film isn't just a horror classic, it's an endurance test. It's brutal, it's relentless, and it completely redefined the slasher genre even before the term slasher was widely used. What Hooper achieved on a shoestring budget is nothing short of astonishing. The film feels dangerously real, like you've stumbled upon some forbidden home video of actual atrocities. And that's where its true power lies. The raw, gritty, almost documentary-style cinematography is a key ingredient in its recipe for terror. It's hot, it's sweaty, it's covered in grime, and it makes the whole ordeal feel incredibly immediate and visceral. Interestingly, for a film with massacre in the title, it's surprisingly restrained in its depiction of on-screen gore, relying more on the power of suggestion, sound design, and the sheer psychological horror of the situation to terrify you. Leatherface and his deranged family are iconic for a reason. They represent a kind of primal, inexplicable madness that's far scarier than any supernatural entity. This film just assaults your senses and leaves you feeling shaken. Now let's shift gears to a more psychological but no less terrifying kind of horror with Jennifer Kent's The Babadook. This Australian gem is a masterpiece of atmospheric dread, exploring the profound and often terrifying realities of grief, motherhood, and mental illness through the guise of a monster-in-the-closet story. It's a film that understands that sometimes the most frightening monsters are the ones that come from within, or the ones that manifest from our deepest anxieties and unresolved pain. It's a slow burn that burrows deep under your skin. The eerie atmosphere is palpable from the very first frame, creating a world that feels suffocating and oppressive, mirroring Amelia's internal state. Essie Davis gives an absolutely powerhouse performance as a widowed mother struggling to cope with her difficult son and her own overwhelming grief. The Babadook itself, initially a creature from a disturbing pop-up book, becomes a terrifying metaphor for her unprocessed trauma. The film is unsettling, deeply moving, and a standout in the genre for its intelligent and compassionate approach to horror, proving that scares can be emotionally resonant and profoundly human. Next up is a film that brought a truly original and deeply unsettling concept to the horror landscape. David Robert Mitchell's It Follows. This movie is a unique and genuinely terrifying take on the genre, and its central premise is the stuff of nightmares. The idea of a relentless, shape-shifting entity that slowly, inexorably follows its victims, an entity that only they can see, is both brilliantly simple and chillingly effective. It taps into a primal fear of being pursued, of an inescapable doom that can look like anyone, anywhere. The film creates this incredible dreamlike, almost timeless atmosphere, aided by a fantastic synth score from Disasterpiece that's become iconic in its own right. It's not about jump scares, though there are a few effective ones. It's about sustained dread, the constant looking over your shoulder, the paranoia that seeps into every frame. The entity itself is terrifying in its mundane disguises, sometimes an old woman, sometimes a stranger, sometimes even someone you know. There are many interpretations of what it represents: STDs, anxiety, trauma, the inevitability of death, and that ambiguity only adds to its unnerving power. Alright, let's journey back in time to Puritan New England for Robert Eggers' stunning debut, The Witch. Subtitled, A New England Folktale. This film is a slow-burning horror that absolutely masterfully builds tension through its meticulously crafted, period-authentic, eerie atmosphere, and its profoundly unsettling story. This isn't your typical jump-scare fest. It's a film that creeps under your skin with its pervasive sense of dread, its historical accuracy, and its exploration of faith, superstition, and the disintegration of a family unit under extreme pressure. What makes The Witch so effective is its commitment to its world. The Jacobean dialogue, the natural lighting, the stark, isolated landscapes, it all immerses you completely in the 17th century mindset where witchcraft was a very real and terrifying threat. The exploration of religious paranoia, the fragility of faith when tested, and the complex, often fraught family dynamics add incredible depth to the horror. Is the evil supernatural, or is it born from their own fears and repressions? The film plays with this ambiguity brilliantly, and Anya Taylor-Joy delivers a phenomenal breakout performance as Thomasin, and Black Phillip, iconic. Now for a film that weaponized silence in a way that had audiences holding their breath, John Krasinski's A Quiet Place. This movie is an absolute masterclass in suspense, demonstrating that what you do not hear can be just as terrifying, if not more so, than a sudden loud noise. The core concept, a family trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic world overrun by blind creatures that hunt by sound, is ingenious and executed with incredible precision. Every creak of a floorboard, every rustle of leaves becomes a potential death sentence. The film uses silence not just as a gimmick, but as a fundamental storytelling tool, creating an almost unbearable sense of unease and tension. You find yourself becoming hyper-aware of every tiny sound, both in the film and in the theater around you. But beyond the incredible suspense, A Quiet Place is also a deeply emotional story about family, communication, and the lengths parents will go to protect their children. The performances, particularly from Emily Blunt and Krasinski himself, are fantastic, conveying so much with so little dialogue. The creature design is terrifying, and the set pieces are brilliantly orchestrated for maximum impact. Oh boy. Okay, next up is Ari Aster's feature debut, Hereditary. And folks, this one is a rough ride in the best and most terrifying way possible. This film doesn't just scare you, it emotionally devastates you. Its use of family trauma, grief, and inherited mental illness to create a pervasive sense of unease is profoundly unsettling and genuinely thought-provoking. It's a film that feels cursed from its opening shot, a meticulously crafted nightmare that slowly unravels, revealing layers of horror that are both supernatural and deeply, painfully human. The film's slow-burning tension is almost unbearable at times, punctuated by moments of such shocking, visceral horror that they sear themselves into your brain. Ari Aster directs with such confidence and control, using dollhouse miniatures as a recurring motif that underscores the character's lack of agency. And Toni Collette? She delivers one of the all-time great horror performances, a raw, unhinged portrayal of a woman unraveling under the weight of unimaginable loss and dark family secrets. The film's exploration of inescapable fate and the cyclical nature of trauma adds a horrifying depth to its already terrifying supernatural elements. This is not an easy watch, but it's an unforgettable one. Following up his smash hit Get Out was never going to be easy, but Jordan Peele delivered another thought-provoking and deeply creepy horror film with Us. This movie takes the concept of doppelgangers, our tethered shadow selves, and spins it into a terrifying home invasion story that expands into something much larger and more allegorical. It's a film packed with symbolism, exploring themes of identity, duality, privilege, and the other that lives beneath the surface of American society. It's ambitious, it's weird, and it's definitely unsettling. Lupita Nyong'o gives an absolutely incredible dual performance as Adelaide and her tethered counterpart Red, embodying both the terrorized victim and the chillingly articulate antagonist. The eerie sight of the Wilson family confronted by their scissor-wielding doubles is instantly iconic and genuinely frightening. Peele's direction is stylish and confident, building an atmosphere of unease that's punctuated by moments of shocking violence and dark humor. While perhaps more overtly fantastical than Get Out, Us is a must-watch for its ambition, its terrifying visuals, and the way it forces you to confront uncomfortable truths about who we are and what we hide. From the twisted mind of Ari Aster, who previously brought us the emotional devastation of Hereditary, comes Midsommar. And let me tell you, this film is a whole different kind of unsettling. It's a visually stunning, folk horror nightmare that unfolds mostly in bright, beautiful, perpetual daylight, which somehow makes the disturbing events even more jarring. It explores themes of grief, dysfunctional relationships, cultural clashes, and the seductive, terrifying allure of belonging, even if that belonging comes at a horrifying price. It's a breakup movie filtered through a psychedelic pagan cult lens. Florence Pugh delivers a career-making performance as Dani, a young woman reeling from an unspeakable tragedy who accompanies her emotionally distant boyfriend and his friends to a remote Swedish commune for their midsummer festival. What starts as idyllic and quirky slowly descends into a ritualistic horror show. The contrast between the vibrant, colorful, sun-drenched setting and the increasingly dark and unsettling story is incredibly effective. Aster's direction is meticulous, filling every frame with detail and foreshadowing. It's a long, immersive, and deeply disturbing experience that will linger with you like a flower crown that's a little too tight. Alright, let's talk about a film that transcends genre, a psychological thriller so potent it swept the major Academy Awards. Jonathan Demme's The Silence of the Lambs. This film is an absolute masterclass in suspense, character development, and creating an atmosphere of palpable dread. And of course, it introduced the world to one of the most iconic, charismatic, and utterly terrifying villains in cinema history, Dr. Hannibal Lecter. His scenes with Clarice Starling are legendary, a verbal chess match between a brilliant psychiatrist turned cannibalistic serial killer and a determined FBI trainee. Anthony Hopkins as Lecter is simply magnetic. His portrayal is fascinating, sophisticated, and chilling to the bone, often with just a look or a perfectly delivered line. Jodie Foster is equally brilliant as Clarice, bringing a compelling mix of vulnerability and strength to the role. The film's genius lies in its atmospheric tension, its clever twisting plot, and the way it delves into the darkest corners of the human psyche without resorting to excessive gore. It keeps you on the absolute edge of your seat from start to finish. The Silence of the Lambs isn't just a great horror movie, it's a true cinematic masterpiece, period. Now we go to Haddonfield, Illinois, for a film that essentially wrote the rulebook for the modern slasher John Carpenter's 1978 classic, Halloween. This film is the epitome of lean, mean, and terrifyingly effective. It introduced the world to the silent, implacable evil of Michael Myers, the Shape, and established Jamie Lee Curtis as the quintessential final girl. What Carpenter achieved on a tiny budget is nothing short of miraculous, creating a film that's pure distilled suspense. The atmosphere Carpenter crafts is incredible, turning a seemingly idyllic suburban Halloween night into a stalking ground for pure, unadulterated evil. That iconic minimalist piano score, also composed by Carpenter, is instantly recognizable and does so much of the heavy lifting in creating that signature sense of dread. He uses the widescreen frame masterfully, often showing Michael lurking in the background, just out of focus, making you constantly scan the edges of the screen. It's not about the gore, it's about the anticipation, the vulnerability, and the terrifying idea of an unstoppable force coming for you in your own home. A true masterclass in low-budget, high-impact horror. Next up, a film that fundamentally changed cinema and sent shockwaves through audiences. Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 masterpiece, Psycho. This film didn't just redefine the horror genre, it created the modern psychological thriller as we know it. Hitchcock, the master of suspense, was in top form here, gleefully subverting audience expectations, breaking cinematic taboos, and delivering one of the most shocking plot twists in film history. Even if you know what's coming, the craftsmanship is undeniable. From its daring narrative structure, killing off its apparent protagonist early on, to the infamous shower scene, Psycho is a masterwork of tension, misdirection, and Freudian horror. Bernard Herrmann's screeching violin score is legendary, practically a character in itself, heightening every moment of suspense and terror. Anthony Perkins delivers an unforgettable performance as the disturbed Norman Bates, a character who is both sympathetic and deeply unsettling. The eerie atmosphere of the Bates Motel, the unsettling mother-son dynamic, and the shocking reveals make Psycho a standout in horror cinema that continues to influence filmmakers today. Let's delve into the insidious horror of paranoia and gaslighting with Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby. This film is a chilling example of psychological horror, where the terror comes not from jump scares or monsters, but from a slowly dawning, horrifying realization. It masterfully explores themes of bodily autonomy, motherhood, and the terrifying feeling of not being believed, of being surrounded by people who may not have your best interests at heart. It's a slow burn that expertly builds an almost unbearable sense of dread and unease. Mia Farrow gives a phenomenal performance as Rosemary Woodhouse, a young wife who becomes increasingly convinced that her eccentric elderly neighbors, and even her own husband, are part of a satanic cult with sinister plans for her unborn child. The film plays brilliantly with ambiguity. Is Rosemary truly a victim of a diabolical conspiracy, or is she succumbing to prenatal paranoia? The slow-building tension, the claustrophobic atmosphere of the Bramford apartment building, and the unsettling, almost dreamlike quality of some scenes make it a deeply disturbing and must-watch classic. The final reveal is an all-timer in terms of chilling implications. Alright, next up is the film that made an entire generation afraid to go into the water, and single-handedly invented the summer blockbuster Steven Spielberg's Jaws. This isn't just a creature feature, it's a masterfully crafted suspense thriller that relies as much on what you see as what you do. The troubled production, with its famously malfunctioning mechanical shark, nicknamed Bruce, actually forced Spielberg to be more creative, using POV shots and John Williams' iconic dread-inducing score to suggest the shark's presence, which ultimately made the film far more terrifying. The story of a police chief, a marine biologist, and a grizzled shark hunter teaming up to stop a man-eating great white terrorizing a New England beach town is simple, but incredibly effective. The characters are well-drawn and relatable, making you genuinely care about their survival. The tension builds relentlessly, from the terrifying opening attack to the thrilling and explosive climax. Jaws is packed with memorable scenes, quotable lines, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," and that unforgettable score that signals impending doom with just 2 notes. It's a classic for a reason, a perfect blend of horror, adventure, and character-driven drama. Now let's blast off into space for a film that perfectly fused science fiction with pure, visceral horror: Ridley Scott's Alien. This movie is a masterpiece of suspense and terror, essentially a haunted house story set on a commercial towing spaceship, the Nostromo. The claustrophobic industrial setting, the incredible biomechanical creature designed by H.R. Giger, and the relentless sense of dread make it an absolute standout in both genres. In space, "No one can hear you scream" isn't just a tagline, it's the terrifying reality for the crew. The film introduces us to one of cinema's greatest heroes, Ellen Ripley, played with steely conviction by Sigourney Weaver, as she and her crewmates are picked off one by one by the titular xenomorph. The creature's life cycle itself is the stuff of nightmares, from the facehugger to the infamous chestburster scene, which is still shocking and brilliantly executed. Scott builds tension masterfully, using darkness, steam, and tight corridors to create an atmosphere of constant threat. It's a film that preys on primal fears: fear of the unknown, fear of bodily violation, fear of being hunted in an inescapable environment. Sticking with sci-fi horror, we now turn to another John Carpenter masterpiece, 1982's The Thing. While perhaps underappreciated upon its initial release, it came out a couple of weeks after E.T., it has since been rightfully recognized as a stone-cold classic of the genre. This film is a masterclass in paranoia, isolation, and truly groundbreaking practical effects. Set in a remote Antarctic research station, it tells the story of a group of American researchers who encounter an extraterrestrial life form that can perfectly assimilate and imitate other organisms. The sense of escalating dread and distrust is palpable as the men realize that any one of them could be the creature in disguise. Rob Bottin's practical creature effects are absolutely astounding, grotesque, and incredibly imaginative. They still hold up today, and are a huge part of why the film is so visceral and terrifying. Carpenter's direction is taut and suspenseful, creating a bleak, nihilistic atmosphere amplified by Ennio Morricone's chilling score. The ambiguity of the ending, with MacReady and Childs unsure if the other is human, is the perfect, unsettling cherry on top of this paranoia-fueled nightmare. Alright, let's talk about the film that took a Ghostface mask and a butcher knife and completely revitalized the slasher genre in the mid-90s, Wes Craven's Scream. This movie is a brilliant piece of meta-horror, a film that's both a genuinely scary slasher and a clever, self-aware commentary on the genre itself. Kevin Williamson's sharp, witty script is packed with horror movie references, and the characters are all too aware of the rules of surviving a horror film, which of course doesn't always help them. Scream managed to be terrifying while simultaneously deconstructing the tropes that had made slashers feel stale. Ghostface, with that iconic mask and voice changer, became an instant horror icon. The opening scene with Drew Barrymore is legendary, a masterclass in building tension and subverting expectations. The film is full of suspenseful set pieces, surprising twists, and characters you actually care about, led by Neve Campbell's resilient Sidney Prescott. It was fresh, it was smart, and it reminded everyone how fun and frightening a well-made slasher could be, kicking off a whole new wave of teen horror. Next up, we're visiting the Freeling family for a supernatural horror classic that tapped into suburban anxieties and childhood fears, Poltergeist. Directed by Tobe Hooper and produced / co-written by Steven Spielberg, whose influence is heavily felt, this film combines elements of a heartwarming family drama with genuinely terrifying ghostly encounters. It's a film that understood what scares us on a primal level, the unknown in our own homes, the vulnerability of our children, and that damn creepy clown doll. They're here! The film is packed with memorable scenes and iconic lines, from Carol Ann's interactions with the TV static to the tree attack and the skeletons in the swimming pool. What makes Poltergeist so effective is its grounding in a relatable family dynamic. You believe in the Freelings, so when their home turns against them, it's all the more frightening. The eerie atmosphere, the impressive, for its time, special effects, and Zelda Rubinstein's unforgettable performance as Tangina Barrons all contribute to its classic status. It's a roller coaster of scares and spectacle, a true haunted house epic. Let's talk about a film that completely changed the game for independent horror and popularized a whole new subgenre, the Blair Witch Project. Released in 1999, this found-footage film, presented as the recovered recordings of 3 student filmmakers who disappeared while investigating a local legend, terrified audiences with its raw, unsettling realism. Its genius marketing campaign blurred the lines between fiction and reality, making people genuinely wonder if what they were seeing was real. The film's power lies in what it shows you. There are no elaborate special effects, no monster reveals. Instead, it relies on the actors' genuinely terrified performances. They were often as much in the dark about what was happening as their characters, the shaky cam aesthetic, and the power of suggestion to create an almost unbearable sense of growing dread and claustrophobia in the woods. The sounds in the night, the stick figures, the piles of stones. It all builds to a chilling and ambiguous climax that leaves so much to your own terrified imagination. It proved that sometimes, less is so much more when it comes to horror. Now for a film that tapped into biblical prophecies and the ultimate evil, Richard Donner's 1976 classic, The Omen. This supernatural horror film tells the chilling story of an American ambassador who discovers that his adopted son, Damien, is actually the Antichrist. It's a film that masterfully builds a sense of impending doom, as a series of bizarre and gruesome accidents begin to occur around anyone who suspects the truth about the boy. The number 666 has never been more ominous. The Omen is known for its incredibly creative and memorable death scenes, which are often elaborate and shocking, playing out like Rube Goldberg machines of doom. Jerry Goldsmith's Oscar-winning score, with its chanting Latin choirs, Ave Satani, is absolutely iconic and contributes immensely to the film's terrifying atmosphere. Gregory Peck lends a gravitas to his role as the horrified father, and Harvey Spencer Stevens is chillingly effective as the seemingly innocent Damien. It's a film that explores themes of fate, evil, and the terrifying idea that the ultimate malevolence can wear the face of a child. Next, we're going to The Prom with Brian De Palma's Carrie, the first Stephen King novel adapted for the screen and a true psychological horror classic. This film is a tragic and terrifying exploration of bullying, religious fanaticism, and the devastating consequences of unchecked cruelty, all culminating in one of the most iconic and bloody revenge sequences in cinema history. Sissy Spacek gives an incredible, Oscar-nominated performance as Carrie White, the painfully shy and telekinetically gifted outcast. De Palma's stylish direction, with his signature use of split screen and slow motion, elevates the material beyond a simple teen horror film. You feel deeply for Carrie, even as her powers begin to manifest in frightening ways. The film builds a suffocating atmosphere of oppression, both from her unhinged mother, played brilliantly by Piper Laurie, and her cruel classmates. The prom scene is a masterclass in tension and release, a horrifying explosion of rage and supernatural power that is both cathartic and deeply disturbing. Carrie is a powerful and unsettling film that remains relevant today. Prepare for some prime body horror with David Cronenberg's 1986 masterpiece, The Fly. This isn't just a remake, it's a complete reimagining that takes the core concept of a scientist's teleportation experiment gone wrong and transforms it into a tragic, grotesque, and surprisingly emotional story about transformation, decay, and the loss of humanity. Jeff Goldblum gives a career-defining performance as Seth Brundle, the eccentric scientist whose DNA becomes fused with that of a common housefly. Cronenberg is the king of body horror, and The Fly is arguably his most accessible, yet still deeply unsettling work. The practical effects by Chris Wallace, which won an Oscar, are astounding and stomach-churning as we witness Brundle's slow, horrifying metamorphosis into Brundlefly. But beyond the incredible makeup and creature effects, the film is a powerful metaphor for disease, aging, and the deterioration of the body, anchored by a compelling love story between Brundle and Gina Davis's Veronica. It's as heartbreaking as it is horrifying, a true standout in the genre. Be afraid, be very afraid. Now for a film that perfectly blended genuine scares with laugh-out-loud comedy, John Landis's An American Werewolf in London. This horror comedy classic tells the story of two American backpackers attacked by a werewolf on the English moors, with one surviving to face a terrifying transformation under the next full moon. It's a film that manages to be both incredibly funny and truly, deeply frightening, often in the same scene. The practical makeup effects by Rick Baker are legendary, particularly the groundbreaking and still incredible werewolf transformation scene, which won the first ever Academy Award for Best Makeup. It's painful, visceral, and utterly convincing. The film is also notable for its dark humor, especially in the scenes where the protagonist, David, is visited by the increasingly decomposed ghost of his dead friend Jack, who urges him to kill himself to break the werewolf curse. Landis masterfully balances the tones, delivering thrilling werewolf action, unsettling dream sequences, and witty dialogue, making it a unique and beloved entry in the horror canon. Let's talk about a film that became a cultural phenomenon and delivered one of the most famous and impactful plot twists in cinema history, M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense. This psychological horror drama tells the story of a troubled child psychologist, played by Bruce Willis, who tries to help a young boy, Cole Sear, Haley Joel Osment, who claims he can see dead people. It's a film that's less about overt scares and more about a pervasive, melancholic atmosphere and deep emotional resonance. Shyamalan directs with a quiet confidence, building an eerie mood and focusing on the powerful performances. Haley Joel Osment is incredible as Cole, conveying a profound sadness and fear that feels utterly real. The film is subtle in its scares, often relying on glimpses of unsettling figures and a growing sense of unease rather than jump scares. And then of course there's Ending, a twist so perfectly executed that it recontextualizes everything you've seen before, making you want to immediately re-watch the film to catch all the clues. It's a masterfully crafted story about grief, communication, and finding peace. Alright, prepare for claustrophobia and creature horror at its finest with Neil Marshall's The Descent. This film takes a group of adventurous women on a caving expedition and plunges them into an uncharted cave system where they soon discover they are not alone. It's a visceral, intense, and utterly terrifying experience that combines the primal fear of being trapped underground with the horror of being hunted by grotesque subterranean creatures. This one is not for the faint of heart or those with a fear of tight spaces. The Descent is brilliant in how it layers its horrors. First, there's the natural danger of caving, the darkness, the tight squeezes, the potential for getting lost or injured. Then it introduces the crawlers, blind, humanoid predators perfectly adapted to their dark environment, leading to some incredibly tense and brutal encounters. The all-female cast is fantastic, portraying characters who are both strong and vulnerable. Neil Marshall directs with relentless energy, creating a truly claustrophobic and terrifying atmosphere. The sense of dread is palpable, and the creature design is genuinely nightmare-inducing. And for our final film in this marathon, we have Scott Derrickson's Sinister, a supernatural horror film that combines elements of true crime investigation with genuinely unsettling, ghostly terror. Ethan Hawke stars as a true crime writer who moves his unsuspecting family into a house where a horrific murder took place, only to discover a box of Super 8 home movies in the attic, each depicting gruesome family annihilations. This film is incredibly effective at creating a deeply creepy and disturbing atmosphere. The Super 8 footage is the dark heart of Sinister. These grainy, lo-fi snuff films, often accompanied by Christopher Young's incredibly unsettling score, are genuinely chilling and form the core of the film's mystery and dread. The slow reveal of the demonic entity Baghul, or Mr. Boogie, and his connection to the murders is handled with a creeping sense of unease. Ethan Hawke gives a strong performance as a man whose obsession with his work puts his family in mortal danger. Sinister is a film that understands how to build suspense and deliver truly eerie scares, making it a memorable and unsettling modern horror entry. And there we have it, folks. 30 horror films in 7 days. I think I made it. My sleep schedule is a wreck. I'm pretty sure every shadow in my house is now a demon, but wow, what a ride. In all seriousness, diving deep into these 30 horror films has been an incredible experience. From enduring psychological torment to witnessing some truly gnarly practical effects, this marathon offered an amazing spectrum of scares, heart-pounding suspense, and genuinely thought-provoking themes that stick with you long after the screen goes dark. It's a testament to the power and diversity of the horror genre. Whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado who quotes dialogue from The Exorcist in your sleep, or someone just dipping their toes into the darker waters of cinema looking for some good scares, I truly believe there was something on this list for everyone. We've seen how horror can be cathartic, how it can be a vehicle for social commentary, and how, at its core, it taps into our most primal fears. The creativity and artistry on display across these decades of filmmaking is just astounding, and I hope you enjoyed this journey through them as much as I did, even the parts that made me want to hide under the covers. Now, if you're as passionate or just plain curious about horror movies as I am, I'd absolutely love to hear from you. What are some of your favorite horror films? Which movies on this list terrified you the most, or which ones do you think I absolutely need to see next? Drop your thoughts, your recommendations, and your own survival stories in the comments below. Let's get a massive horror conversation started. Thanks so much for watching, for sticking with me through this marathon of madness, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more horror-related content. Stay scared, everybody.